and welcome to DeeVine DeeZine. I am so happy that you have joined me today because I have part 2 of a very special collaboration. Many of you were already here last month, and so you have already heard the beginning part of our stories, but there are several of you that may be new. So I'm going to take just a second to fill you in. I'm going to roll across your screen all of the channels that are participating in this collaboration with me. Many of these faces you probably already recognize and may already even be subscribed to, but there may be a few new faces and some new channels for you to explore. Last month in May, we set out to tell you guys our personal stories, and we are building that up for you all summer long to end up telling you our story of triumph because, like many of you, we have struggled with self-esteem and self-value issues ourselves, and sometimes it's hard for you guys to maybe understand that or realize that because you see us as personalities on YouTube that seem confident and that seem like we have stuff all together, and sometimes it's hard to relate thinking that, wow, these are real women just like me. So that is what we are striving to do. We're telling you our stories this summer. We are giving you some examples of maybe some struggles that we have had in loving ourselves, and we are going to let you know what we did to finally find our self-worth and self-value, just in order to have a little bit of confidence to do what we were created to do, because I firmly believe that each and every one of you have a great purpose in life, but sometimes it's hard to fulfill that purpose if you don't feel very valuable. So that's what we're going to set out to do. I want to encourage you to make sure that you check out all of the other ladies. I know that there's a lot of channels involved, and so that can take quite a bit of time to watch every video when they come out, but the good thing about it is you have all kinds of time to go back because it's going to be sitting there on YouTube for you for quite a while. It's not a live event, so you don't have to worry about watching it all in a 2-hour span of time. You can space those out maybe every couple of days until you finally have made your rounds to see what everybody has to say, because there are some very powerful stories and we want to make sure that you hear them all. So we're going to go ahead and jump right on in with this month's questions. Some of these questions might not make a lot of sense to you if you don't go back and watch part 1. I will have my part 1 linked for you down below, and I'm sure all of the other channels will have theirs linked for you as well. Were there features about yourself that you came to hate due to the bullying, teasing, abuse, or self-perception that you had, such as your looks, features, or even your personality? Yes. I talked to you guys last month a little bit about some of the names that I can remember being called. I did face bullies off and on, but like I said last month, I actually learned how to kind of befriend the bullies so that my bullying experience wasn't near as bad as what other people have to go through. Obviously, there were some people that I could never win over and make friends with, and that's going to be true in all of our lives, because what I have learned is you are not going to be friends with everybody. Somebody is going to hate you no matter what you do, no matter how perfect you are, no matter how good you are. So there were people that I could never kind of win over to my side, so to speak, or cause them to like me. And yeah, the words that they said did cause me to have some features about myself that I wish that I could change. Words are very, very powerful. As a matter of fact, when the Bible talks about that no weapon formed against us shall prosper, we kind of like to stop quoting that verse right there. Oh, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. But if we read the second half of that verse, it says, and every tongue that rises up against you in judgment, you shall show to be in the wrong. That is saying that the weapon that is most often used against you is words. Words are very powerful. There was an old saying when we were growing up, and I'm sure many of you have heard it and probably still say it, and it went something like this: Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. And a lot of times we would say that back to somebody who is being mean to us because we felt like, oh, well, I'm going to show them what they're saying. It's not going to hurt me. If you ever did that, then you probably were like me. On the inside, you were dying, but you were hoping that while saying that statement in return to someone, you were hoping that, okay, this is going to make me feel better and it's not going to let them know how bad they've really hurt me. Kind of like a facade, I guess, a mask that you would put on because we didn't want other people to know quite how bad what they just said did hurt us. But yes, those words can cut deeply and cause us to want to change the thing that we're being picked on for. Now, granted, when we're talking about this kind of stuff and when I sit down in a counseling room with people to try to help them overcome these kind of issues, sure, there may be things in our life that we need to change. If we go around not showering and maybe have a fragrance that's not quite so sweet and someone picks on that, I think we have to stop and observe and take a look and say, okay, is this something that does really need to change? And if you need to take more showers to avoid that, by all means, take more showers. But there are a lot of ways that people pick on us or kids when we were younger, because kids can be so cruel. There were a lot of things that kids say to kids that hold no merit, hold no value, that are simply meant to demean and destroy. And often those words do come from bully type people who feel so insecure inside themselves that in order to make themselves feel better, they have to be cutting someone down. The problem is that when we're young and we're experiencing that, we don't necessarily have that kind of knowledge or wisdom to understand that that's what's happening. So when the words come at us, or when they came at us when we were young, it was hard to understand the motive behind it. Therefore, if you're like me, I absorbed it in as truth. And, I told you guys last week some of the things that I was picked on about. And sure, I came to hate a lot of things about myself. The number one thing that I can remember wanting to change more than anything was my personality. Because I think that I was picked on about that more than anything else. I was called motor mouth. I was called at times hyperactive. I was called pushy. I was called, Little Miss Goody Two Shoes. We talked about that last time. I was called independent. And just, there were some words that came at me that really caused me to not like who I was. I was too young to understand the 4 basic personality types, and that no matter how hard you strive to come into balance, which we all should, by the way, and we will do a series on that sooner or later, that no matter how hard that you do strive to come into balance, you are going to have one dominant personality trait that you will never get rid of, because it's who you are. It is the personality that God made you with for a purpose and a reason. I didn't understand that. And so, I would try to get quiet, and I would go through periods of time where I would say, okay, then I'm just not going to say anything. Well, that didn't last very long because my personality is obviously, I have a lot of words. So naturally, that didn't work out very well. But then I would leave, and I would have been in a conversation and maybe said some things that made me feel stupid, and I would be like, why did I say that? Why did I have to say that? Why can't I just be quiet? And I would be so angry with myself, so embarrassed, feeling like, once again, I've talked too much, I've said the wrong thing, I've come across as too bossy. Matter of fact, I can remember that when my husband and I got married, I was already struggling with all of these kind of thoughts and feelings already. And when we came into our wedding rehearsal night, it was my wedding. It was going to go the way I wanted it because it was my wedding. So we walk into the venue where we were having our rehearsal, and immediately I started telling everyone, okay, I would like for you to stand here and you to stand here, and this is how I want you to come over and get her arm so that you guys can walk together and blah, blah, blah. And just trying to lay the whole scenario out. Well, on our 1-year anniversary, we pulled that video out to watch it, my husband and I, just to reminisce a little bit. And the first thing he said to me was, wow, you sure were bossy. And once again, it's like, man, that dagger right at me that, I've been told this all my life, that I'm bossy and that I'm just tell people what to do, and blah, blah, blah. And I could feel my spirit really starting to sink, because I thought, man. But then the more I got to thinking about it, as the video continued and we were watching it, I leaned up and I looked over at him and I said, why shouldn't I have been? This was my wedding. Of course I was going to go in and tell people what to do. And how dare people have the veracity to try to make me feel bad about that? You know what I mean? Now, I could understand if I had been being hateful and mean and you're going here and you're going there, but to just give a gentle instruction, but to take charge of a situation that I really was in charge of, it kind of was at that point to where I started realizing, I have let people criticize me and cut me down for far too long about things that really are not wrong with me. But by that point, you see, I had reached my young adult years and was a little more prepared mentally to be able to know how to handle those types of criticisms, if that makes sense to you. Because when we're little and those things are coming at us, we just don't have any clue on how to handle them. So yeah, there were definitely things. I always wanted different hair. I had a big cowlick in the front. I told you guys about my teeth, how bad they were. I wanted that to change, probably more than anything. I was not very slender in build, nor very tall. I'm about 5'5", which is about average, but I would get around these really tall girls who had these long, lanky legs. I have short legs and short arms, and yeah, there were a lot of things about myself that I really did want to change, and dwelt on that far too many hours, trying to be or wishing that I could be something than what I really was. Did you find yourself trying to morph into what you thought others wanted you to be instead of just being yourself? If so, explain. I think I kind of just explained that, so no real need to go over that again. But yeah, I definitely did. I tried to be quieter. I tried to be more sweet and more gentle. I never felt that I was mean and rude. Can I be? Oh yes, you crossed my path the wrong way, and watch out, Jack, because I really can come at you if I want to. But overall, for the most part, I thought that I was being kind and gentle and sweet and caring towards people. But whenever those words come at you, you strive even harder to be that perfect little thing that people are expecting you to be. And yeah, I spent a lot of time trying to rearrange who I was to make people around me happy, and it was killing me inside. It really, truly was. Did the self-esteem issues you struggled with cause you to want to act in self-destructive ways, such as just withdrawing from people, becoming more aggressive yourself, having depression or self-harm, such as cutting, things like that, or even attempted suicides? I can tell you for a fact that, yeah, there were many times that I had thought about suicide whenever I was a teenager. And just to be honest with you, I would have to say that probably a vast majority of teenagers have the thought at least once as they're growing older. But for me, there were several times that I can remember. I never got to the point, I had enough fear of God to know that if I harm myself in that kind of way, He's not going to be very happy with that. And I can't guarantee that my destination would be heaven if that is an action that I took against myself. And so those kind of thoughts always held me back from self-harm, but the thoughts were definitely there. There were many days that I just wanted to check out of this world and think, you know what, it is just not worth this struggle. It's not worth hating myself every day. It's not worth going to school and hearing the negative comments and hearing the criticisms that people want to throw my way, because no matter what I was doing, I just never felt like I could measure up to the standard that people were setting for me. I couldn't do it, or so I felt. And that's the thing when we're growing older, and especially during those adolescent and teen years, we have a perception of what we think is required of us. We don't have the maturity or the wisdom yet to know that that's not a reality that we should be living up to. And if we can't talk about it, or if we just refuse to talk about it, we try to struggle through these things on our own, hating ourselves more and more every day. That's why I highly encourage parents, have these kind of conversations with your kids, because many of us can remember back that when we were teenagers or adolescents, we didn't necessarily know how to come to our parents to talk about what we were feeling. Some of the issues might have even been from your parents. And so maybe for some of you, the abusive words, the criticisms, the cut downs, the snide remarks might have been coming at you more from at home than they were from anywhere else. And maybe you didn't have anybody to turn to. And the only option for you probably felt like, I just need to escape all of this by getting out of here, or I'm just going to have to learn to deal with it and try to change who I am so that this person will just get off my back and maybe I can finally be what they're hoping that I can be. And I know the reality is that there are probably a lot of you who have been there and who have struggled there. And I know I sure have been there. I have had many days where I tried to change who I was, what I was, tried to wear my hair a different way, or tried to put on a different style of clothing because somebody told me that a different style might look better. And again, I want to make sure that I make it clear that we can't be so in love with ourselves that we totally negate all constructive criticism, because we always have room for growth and change. And we have to be very careful that in our efforts to learn to love ourselves, that we don't fall in love with ourselves, because when we do that, man, pride takes right over. It can just, it can be an unhealthy thing where we shut the word of everybody out, and we don't want to listen to any kind of criticisms, and we don't want to improve at all. And that can be dangerous, because there are things that we can improve on, and a lot of times we're not going to see it or know it until somebody shares it with us. Okay, so we got to be really careful that as we're giving you guys this information, in no way do I ever want to convey to you to just be so in love with yourself that the voice of other people don't matter. But at the same time, you've got to have the balance to know when should the voices matter and when shouldn't they, if you follow me. Because for a lot of us, we have allowed every voice to matter, so much so that it has caused us to live a life that really we don't even recognize anymore, and the real us is lost somewhere in this world of struggle and confusion. So we're going to leave you there today, because we want you to come back in July. Next month, we're going to conclude all this up and give you some very practical steps, what we did to be able to learn the difference. Who do I listen to? Who do I not listen to? How do I learn to love who I am, even with my flaws and even with the things that do need to change? How do I learn to let go of all the words and the voices that plague me, to be confident in who I am today, so that I can go on to fulfill the purpose that I have been created for? And those are some of the questions that we're going to be answering for you in July. So please make sure that you come back around. Hopefully you can see that those of us in YouTube world are just as human as those of you who enjoy watching us. And hopefully through our stories and through us being open and honest, we're going to be able to help you guys right where you are. Because I just, like I've told you, I have done a lot of counseling through my years, and being in ministry, people come to you with issues that they just can't seem to break free from. And a vast majority of it stems from when they were young, and words that were spoken over them have kept them locked in a bondage that they find almost practically impossible to get out of. But I'm going to show you next week how you can, because there is hope indeed. I want to thank all of you so very much for sitting here with me for a few minutes today. I hope that you will go check out all of the other ladies and hear their stories as well, and to maybe glean some wisdom from them. I hope that you all will definitely stay tuned in next month as we give you the big reveal on how we overcame some of these issues and how we went on to enjoy our life confident, loving ourselves. I want to thank you very much. We will see you in the next video.